The rain poured down over the small town, soaking the sidewalks and painting the neon diner signs in blurred streaks of red and blue. Inside Sunnyside Cafe, the bell above the door jingled every few minutes as customers came in to escape the storm. At the far end of the counter, Emma wiped her hands on her apron, pushing away strands of hair that had slipped from her messy bun. 27 years old, tired, and weighed down with bills, Emma had learned to smile through exhaustion. Being a waitress wasn't her dream. Not even close. She had studied culinary arts, dreamed of running her own kitchen, maybe even owning a small bakery one day. But dreams were expensive, and life had a way of handing her more responsibility than freedom. Her mother's hospital bills. Her younger brother's college tuition. The rent that kept climbing. Emma worked double shifts just to keep the lights on. And still, she smiled for every customer, because kindness was free, even when life wasn't. That night, just as she refilled a coffee mug for a trucker on his way through town, the diner door opened again. A man in his mid-50s stepped in, shaking the rain from his coat. He looked worn out, pale, and unsteady on his feet. His suit was damp, the kind only a businessman would wear, but he carried no umbrella, no entourage. He slid into a booth quietly, avoiding eye contact, as if he wanted to disappear into the shadows. Emma noticed immediately. She had a knack for it. Seeing people. Not just their orders, but the pain behind their eyes, the stories in the way they held themselves. Something about this man tugged at her instincts. She grabbed a menu, walked over, and set it in front of him with her usual warm smile. "Evenin'. Rough night out there, huh?" The man gave a weak chuckle, his voice raspy. "You could say that. What can I get you? Coffee? Something hot?" He hesitated, glancing at the menu but not really reading it. "Just coffee, black." Emma nodded, but she didn't walk away. She studied him for a second, the pale skin, the trembling hands. His breathing was shallow, uneven. She leaned closer. "Sir, are you okay?" He looked up at her, startled, as though no one had asked him that in a very long time. "I'm fine." But he wasn't. Emma's training from culinary school included basic first aid, and she'd spent enough nights caring for her sick mother to recognize the signs. His lips looked faintly bluish, and sweat beaded his forehead despite the cold rain outside. She set the menu aside. "No, you're not fine." Before he could argue, he slumped forward. His coffee cup clattered to the floor, shattering. Gasps rippled through the diner. "Call 911. Emma shouted, already moving. The man was unconscious, his breathing shallow. Emma dropped to her knees beside him, heart racing. She tilted his head back, checked his airway, and began CPR, compressions steady, breaths careful. The whole diner froze, watching the waitress they saw every day turn into a lifesaver. "Come on, stay with me," she whispered, pressing down rhythmically. After what felt like forever, the man jerked, gasped, and coughed violently. Emma supported him as he sputtered, his eyes fluttering open. Relief flooded her chest as the sound of approaching sirens wailed in the distance. When the paramedics burst in, they took over, stabilizing him and loading him onto a stretcher. The man caught Emma's wrist weakly before they wheeled him out. His voice was barely audible, but she heard it. "Thank you, don't leave," and then he was gone. The diner buzzed with chatter after the ambulance left, but Emma just stood there trembling. Her apron was stained, her hands shaking. She excused herself, washed up, and returned to her shift like nothing happened. Because that's what life demanded, no time for heroes, just bills to pay. 2 days later, the rain was gone, and the morning sun lit up the diner's chrome edges. Emma was back at work, serving pancakes and scrambled eggs to regulars, when the bell over the door jingled. She turned, and her breath caught. It was him. The man she'd saved, walking slowly but stronger now, dressed in a fresh suit. He wasn't alone this time. 2 well-dressed assistants flanked him. The entire diner went quiet, curious. Emma hurried over. "Oh my God, you're okay. You scared us all to death." The man smiled faintly. "I owe you more than I can ever repay." "Don't be silly," Emma said. "Anyone would have helped." But he shook his head. "No, not anyone. You didn't hesitate. You saved my life." The assistants exchanged glances, but said nothing. The man extended his hand. "My name is Richard Hale." Emma blinked. The name sounded familiar. Too familiar. She frowned, searching her memory. And then it hit her. Richard Hale. The CEO of Hale's Diner Group, the company that owned the very chain she worked for. Her knees nearly gave out. Wait, yes, Richard said, with a small laugh. I own this place. Well, not just this one. All 430 of them. The diner erupted into murmurs. The waitress who had saved a man's life had unknowingly saved the very man who signed her paychecks. Emma was speechless. She stammered, I had no idea. I was just doing what anyone should do. Richard studied her carefully. Your manager tells me you're one of the hardest workers here. Customers adore you. And yet, your file says you trained as a chef. Emma's cheeks burned. Yeah, but life got in the way. He leaned forward. Life often does, but sometimes it gives you second chances too. The following week, Emma received an unexpected invitation. Dinner with Richard at one of the flagship Hale's restaurants in the city. She almost didn't go. What could a billionaire CEO want with her? But curiosity won. When she arrived, she was ushered into a private dining room. Richard greeted her warmly and gestured to the table, which was set with fine china and sparkling glasses. They talked for hours. He asked about her dreams, her struggles, her passion for food. She confessed that she still baked late at night in her tiny apartment kitchen, trying recipes and jotting down ideas for a bakery she could never afford. Richard listened intently, his expression softening. Finally, he set his glass down. Emma, you saved my life, but more than that, you reminded me of something I'd forgotten. Why I started this business in the first place. It wasn't just to build restaurants. It was to create places where people feel cared for. Somewhere along the way, I lost sight of that. Emma smiled shyly. You haven't lost it, you just needed reminding. He nodded. Then, after a pause, he said the words that changed everything. How would you feel about running one of our kitchens? Emma nearly choked on her water. What? No, I'm just a waitress. I can't. You can. Richard interrupted firmly. I've read your record. I've seen your drive. I want you to join our culinary development team. Help us create new menus. Bring some heart back into our kitchens. Tears welled in her eyes. Are you serious? As serious as the night you saved me? Months later, Emma stood in a gleaming Hale's test kitchen in the city, her white chef's coat spotless, her name embroidered neatly on the chest. She had gone from juggling bills and wiping counters to crafting new recipes that would roll out nationwide. The first time she saw her dessert, Emma's caramel apple pie, printed on the menu, she nearly cried. Customers loved it. She still worked long hours, but now they were hours filled with passion, not survival. And every time she looked at the logo on the wall, she thought back to that rainy night, when she'd saved a stranger without knowing who he was. Sometimes, life's biggest opportunities hid behind the smallest acts of kindness. And Emma, the struggling waitress with a hidden skill, had finally found her place.